So I hope everybody's Sunday's going good. Been pretty busy with family stuff this week. My father-in-law, whom I've spoken about in the past, he took a pretty heavy turn for the worst on Wednesday, and maybe it was Tuesday. Now that I think about it, Tuesday, and he ended up. His body wasn't expelling carbon dioxide as well, and he was on the ventilator, and the doctor said it's not going to be much time with his body not being able to expel that carbon dioxide. So had a few days there, had to make some plans, help my wife's mom get through some tough times and get some family coming in. We took him off life support Friday night, and he went peacefully shortly after that. So I didn't get the chance to bring him to the hunting camp, and I don't really see a particular regret in that. His name was Jim. Jim wasn't cheated his last few years. His wife Dee, she did everything that she could to make sure that his life was comfortable. And, as they primarily raise my nephews. My wife and I help out as much as we can. Say, for example, last spring, they went down went over to St. Pete Beach, and there's Jim, barely able to walk, and he goes out in his walker, and he walks out into the ocean. Like, imagine just a frail old man walking out across a Florida beach. Now, if y'all have never been to one, you've got like soft sand, about at least 50 yards of soft sand before you get to the beach. And there he was, trudging those 50 yards of soft sand, and then another 50 yards to actually go waist deep into the ocean, or in the Gulf rather, and feel that. Loved the water, man, loved the water. And he loved hunting, he loved the outdoors. And that's why in a lot of cases I didn't begrudge him much. He was he had his moments where he'd be a little bit of annoying, but he just had that kind of character. We're all different, we all have our quirks, and in the case of Jim, it's a matter of personality, and our personalities conflicted, as I realized later on. Our personalities conflicted because of how similar they were, It's been surreal last few days, seeing people coming to terms with or facing that situation. It's something that I've had the benefit of 5 years to come to terms with this. He and I used to talk daily, and it started out as like a cyst in his nasal cavity. So like as his voice began to change and slowly deteriorated, they were having trouble, and the doctor would put him on some antibiotics, and it'd go down for a little bit, but it always came back. And then finally my wife was like, okay, stop screwing around here. Let's run this full spectrum test, check with oncology again, and lo and behold, it was cancer. And the test came back, and when he told me, I was very upset, crying quite a bit. This was 4 or 5 years ago. And he's like, this was when, he's fully here still, and he's like, why are you crying? It's like, man, I'm just not ready, not ready not to have you around. And he's like, I'm okay. I know where I'm going, and it's gonna be all right, and I know you're gonna be there for my daughter, my granddaughter, and look out for my wife and your nephews. And he hung on. I think he hung on for the last few years beyond when he should have, went through the cancer, went through the fight for the first spat of it. By the time the cancer had metastasized to his lungs, he was no longer able to continue chemotherapy. Just very, very beat down, and we almost lost him a few times. Like there was a cancer in his throat that made his body very frail and everything back then. This one amazing moment, and I'm not sure why I was to witness this. My nephew, he's 16, and they were there when they pulled both my nephews were there when they pulled the tubes out of him, because it finally got to where the suction couldn't keep the fluid. It couldn't catch up with the fluid, and it was gurgling and very upsetting to my mother-in-law. And they were there when they pulled the tubes from him, and there he is pulling for air, doing his part, because he continued to breathe. And my nephew saw this, and when my nephew was born, this was 16 some odd years ago, he had a lot of trouble with his lungs hadn't fully developed. I don't remember if he was a little bit of a preemie, but his lungs hadn't developed. And I remember being there in the baby intensive care, and there was Jim looking down at Chandler, as a baby, gasping for air. And here we all are full circle, and there's my nephew looking down at his pops gasping for air. It was a strange moment, and I'm interested in y'all's thoughts. I don't know if the message in there was like to fully understand how life is a cycle in order to accept it. I don't know, but I'd like to, if I can, and then if you guys have experience with this, continue this discussion, because there's a few other things I'd like to talk about too. But hope all's doing well, and talk to y'all soon.